Right now, while you're watching this, the second most powerful official in the United States is standing at a podium inside the State Department, addressing representatives from nearly 50 countries. The Vice President of the United States, the Secretary of State, senior White House advisors on global supply chains, top officials responsible for economic security and sanctions policy. And the subject being discussed in that room is not diplomacy as usual. It's not a routine mining conference. It's not symbolic international cooperation. It's control. Control over the materials that determine which countries can build advanced weapons, deploy next-generation technology, power modern economies, and maintain strategic independence in the decade ahead. Because today, silver stopped being just a commodity. It crossed into something far more serious. It became a strategic asset. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why this meeting was scheduled long in advance, why it's happening just days after one of the most violent silver crashes in modern history, and why the timing alone tells you this wasn't random. Welcome to the channel where we follow power, not headlines. Everyone saw what happened on Friday. Silver collapsed in a single session. Futures plunged more than 30%. Spot prices fell close to 28%. Billions in market value disappeared almost instantly. Margin calls cascaded, forced liquidations fed more forced liquidations, and liquidity vanished. It was the worst one-day move since 1980. Most people explained it away as excessive speculation, a parabolic rally that went too far, a technical reset. But almost nobody noticed what appeared quietly 2 days later, buried on the State Department website without fanfare or media attention. A short announcement stated that the United States would host the inaugural Critical Minerals Ministerial, welcoming delegations from over 50 nations to strengthen and diversify critical mineral supply chains vital to economic strength and national security. National security. When the State Department uses that language, it isn't talking about consumer electronics or market efficiency. It's talking about materials the country cannot function without. This is the first time in U.S. history that 50 nations have been convened at the ministerial level to discuss mineral supply chains explicitly as a security issue. Not 5 countries, not 10, 50. That alone tells you something fundamental has changed. Silver is part of that conversation because it now meets every definition of a critical mineral. Modern defense systems, advanced electronics, solar infrastructure, electric vehicles, medical technology, and telecommunications all depend on silver. There is no substitute with the same electrical conductivity, thermal performance, and reliability. That's not opinion, that's physics. The supply chain is also dangerously concentrated. China dominates global silver refining, not mining, but refining. That distinction matters. Ore has no value until it's processed. Control the refining bottleneck, and you control downstream industry. And, unlike other materials, silver can't be engineered around. It's the most electrically conductive element on Earth. You don't innovate your way around the periodic table. That's why silver was formally added to the U.S. Critical Minerals list. Once something receives that designation, price becomes secondary to access. Now look closely at the timing, because timing reveals intent. You don't organize a 50-nation ministerial in 4 days. You don't coordinate travel, security, credentials, translators, agendas, and negotiations on a weekend. This meeting was planned months ago, which means when the date was set, someone already knew silver was about to move violently. Silver rallied aggressively through January. Speculation exploded, leverage piled in, prices reached extremes. Then suddenly, emergency margin hikes, forced selling, liquidity withdrawal, a violent collapse, and 4 days later, the largest coordinated critical minerals meeting in U.S. history begins. That is not coincidence. That is preparation. In diplomatic language, words are chosen carefully. Strengthen and diversify supply chains sounds cooperative. In practice, it means reducing dependence on China, building parallel refining capacity, securing long-term supply agreements, creating strategic stockpiles, and removing critical materials from hostile leverage. This is the same framework already applied to rare earths, gallium, germanium, and energy security. Silver is now part of that strategy. In a fragmented world, supply chains are weapons. Now ask yourself a simple question. If the United States and its allies are about to negotiate long-term silver supply contracts, strategic reserve purchases, and multi-year pricing frameworks, Would they prefer to do that at record highs or after a panic-driven collapse? Lower prices mean better terms, easier approvals, less political resistance, and stronger negotiating leverage. The crash didn't just reset sentiment, it reset the board. If you hold physical silver, today confirmed something important. It's no longer just an investment, it's a strategic material. If you hold paper exposure, Friday demonstrated how quickly paper prices can be crushed when leverage and liquidity disappear. If you follow mining equities, long-term government-backed demand fundamentally changes the risk profile, especially for producers in allied nations. And if you panic sold at the lows, you sold at the exact moment silver entered the national security conversation at the highest level of government. This isn't about hype, it's about structure. The post-Cold War system of frictionless global trade is breaking down. Supply chains are fragmenting, economic blocks are forming. And in that world, control over materials matters more than price charts. Friday was not the story, today is. And whatever comes out of that room in Washington will shape the silver market and global industrial power for the next decade. Follow the money, follow the timing, and never ignore what governments do quietly.